"I'm going to destroy that arrogant basketball player's reputation," declared corporate attorney Victoria Sterling as she reviewed the lawsuit documents spread across her mahogany desk. Her client claimed Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had caused a car accident through reckless driving, and Victoria was determined to win a massive settlement that would make headlines across the sports world. What Victoria didn't know was that she was about to file the most embarrassing lawsuit of her career, against someone who would teach her the difference between being legally right and being actually right. The date was September 14, 2023. Victoria Sterling sat in her corner office on the 47th floor of Sterling Associates, one of Oklahoma City's most prestigious law firms, preparing what she believed would be the career-defining case that would establish her as the city's premier litigation attorney. At 34 years old, Victoria had built her reputation on aggressive tactics, meticulous preparation, and an unwavering commitment to winning at any cost. She specialized in high-profile cases involving celebrities and athletes, and had never lost a case that made it to trial. Her current client, Richard Morrison, was a wealthy real estate developer who claimed that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had rear-ended his $200,000 Porsche while driving recklessly through downtown Oklahoma City. Morrison was seeking $5 million in damages for vehicle repair, medical expenses, and emotional distress. "Victoria, this is going to be a slam dunk," Morrison had said during their initial consultation. "I have photos of the damage, witness statements, and medical records. This basketball player thinks he can get away with anything because he's famous, but I'm going to teach him that nobody is above the law." Victoria had reviewed Morrison's evidence and agreed that the case appeared straightforward. The photos showed significant damage to both vehicles, the witness statements seemed credible, and Morrison's medical records documented injuries consistent with a rear-end collision. But what Victoria didn't know was that her client had deliberately misled her about crucial details that would make this case a catastrophic mistake. Victoria's legal strategy was aggressive and comprehensive. She planned to argue that Shai's celebrity status had made him reckless and entitled, leading to dangerous driving behavior that endangered innocent citizens. She had prepared character witnesses who would testify about the negative influence of professional athletes on community safety. "We're going to make an example of this guy," Victoria told her legal team during a strategy meeting. "Athletes think they can do whatever they want because they have money and fame. It's time someone taught them accountability." Victoria's assistant, Janet Rodriguez, who had worked for the firm for 12 years, expressed some concerns about the aggressive approach. "Victoria, have you researched Mr. Gilgeous-Alexander's background and reputation? Maybe we should understand who we're dealing with before we attack his character." Victoria dismissed these concerns with the confidence of someone who had never been wrong about reading people and situations. "Janet, I don't need to research his background. He's a professional athlete who caused a car accident and now thinks his fame will protect him from consequences. The evidence is clear, and that's all that matters in court." But what Victoria was about to discover was that she had made assumptions about evidence, character, and truth that would cost her far more than just a legal case. Victoria filed the lawsuit with great fanfare, issuing press releases that described Shai as a reckless celebrity driver who endangered innocent citizens through his entitled behavior. She scheduled interviews with local media outlets to discuss the case and positioned herself as a champion of ordinary citizens against privileged athletes. The story was picked up by sports media nationwide with headlines like "Thunder Star Sued for $5 million After Reckless Driving Accident" and "NBA Player's Dangerous Driving Lands Him in Court." Victoria was thrilled with the media attention, believing it would pressure Shai's legal team to settle quickly rather than face a prolonged public relations nightmare. But Shai's response to the lawsuit was not what Victoria had expected. Instead of hiring a team of high-powered attorneys to fight the charges, Shai issued a simple public statement. "I look forward to the truth coming out in court. I have complete confidence in the legal system's ability to determine what actually happened." Victoria interpreted this response as weakness and inexperience with legal matters. "He's going to try to play the humble, respectful athlete card," she told her team. But juries see through that act when the evidence is overwhelming. However, what happened during the discovery phase of the lawsuit would begin to unravel everything Victoria thought she knew about the case. Shai's legal team, led by experienced trial attorney Michael Chin, began requesting documentation that Victoria assumed would be routine: police reports, traffic camera footage, cell phone records, and witness contact information. That's when Victoria discovered that her client had been less than truthful about several crucial details. The police report, which Morrison had claimed supported his version of events, actually indicated that the investigating officer had been unable to determine fault due to conflicting witness statements and unclear physical evidence. More troubling, the traffic camera footage that Morrison had said would prove Shai's reckless driving was nowhere to be found. When Victoria contacted the city's traffic department, she learned that the camera at that intersection had been non-functional for 3 months prior to the accident. But the most damaging discovery came when Victoria tried to contact the witnesses Morrison had provided. 2 of the 3 witnesses had moved out of state within days of the accident and left no forwarding addresses. The 3rd witness, when contacted by Victoria's investigators, claimed to have no memory of witnessing any car accident. "Sterling, I think there might be some confusion," the witness said during a phone interview. "I was asked to sign a statement about a fender bender, but I didn't actually see what happened. Someone just told me what to write." Victoria felt the first stirrings of doubt about her case, but she was too committed to the lawsuit and too confident in her abilities to consider the possibility that she had been deceived by her own client. But what happened next would force Victoria to confront the possibility that she was not only wrong about the case, but wrong about the person she was trying to destroy. Shai's legal team filed a motion for discovery that included a request for Morrison's complete driving record, insurance claims history, and financial records related to the accident. What they uncovered was shocking. Morrison had filed 6 similar insurance claims over the past 4 years, all involving rear-end collisions with luxury vehicles, and all resulting in substantial settlements. More damaging, Morrison's financial records showed that he was facing bankruptcy and had been desperately seeking sources of income to avoid losing his real estate business. But the evidence that would ultimately destroy Victoria's case came from an unexpected source: Morrison's own security system. Shai's investigators discovered that Morrison's office building had external security cameras that covered the parking garage where he claimed to have parked his damaged Porsche after the accident. The footage showed Morrison's car being towed into the garage with pre-existing damage that matched the photos he had provided as evidence of Shai's reckless driving. The timestamp on the footage was 2 days before the alleged accident had occurred. However, what devastated Victoria more than losing the case was discovering the truth about the person she had been trying to destroy. As the evidence mounted against Morrison's credibility, Victoria began researching Shai's background, something she should have done months earlier. What she found made her feel sick with shame and regret. Shai had no history of traffic violations, reckless behavior, or legal problems of any kind. His driving record was spotless, and his insurance company confirmed that he had never been involved in any at-fault accidents. More importantly, Victoria discovered that Shai was extensively involved in community safety programs, including initiatives that promoted responsible driving among young people and educational campaigns about the dangers of distracted driving. The person Victoria had portrayed as a reckless, entitled celebrity was actually someone who dedicated significant time and resources to promoting exactly the kind of responsible behavior she had accused him of lacking. But the revelation that shattered Victoria's confidence in her own judgment came when she learned about Shai's response to her aggressive media campaign. Instead of retaliating with his own media blitz or filing countersuits for defamation, Shai had quietly continued his community work and refused to make any public statements that would escalate the conflict. When asked by reporters about Victoria's personal attacks on his character, Shai had simply said, "I'm confident that the truth will speak for itself. I don't see any benefit in responding to accusations with more accusations." Victoria realized that while she had been using every weapon in her legal arsenal to destroy Shai's reputation, he had been demonstrating the kind of grace and maturity that she had spent her career claiming to defend. But what happened during the court hearing that would ultimately dismiss the case would provide Victoria with the most humbling experience of her professional life. When Morrison was called to testify under oath about the details of the accident, his story fell apart completely under cross-examination by Shai's attorney. Morrison couldn't explain the discrepancies in his witness statements, the convenient disappearance of key evidence, or the suspicious timing of his financial difficulties. Most damaging, when confronted with the security footage showing his car's pre-existing damage, Morrison broke down and admitted that he had fabricated the entire accident in a desperate attempt to avoid bankruptcy. "I'm sorry," Morrison said, tears streaming down his face. "I needed the money and I thought a famous athlete would just settle rather than fight. I never meant for it to go this far." Victoria sat in stunned silence as her client confessed to insurance fraud, perjury, and defamation in open court. But the moment that would haunt Victoria for years came when the judge asked if Shai wanted to press criminal charges against Morrison for fraud and perjury. Shai's response shocked everyone in the courtroom, including Victoria. "Your Honor, Mr. Morrison is clearly struggling with serious financial and personal problems. I don't think sending him to prison will help him or his family. I would prefer that he receive counseling and community service, and that he make a public apology for the false accusations. Victoria had spent months portraying Shai as entitled and vindictive, but when given the opportunity for revenge, he chose compassion and mercy instead. However, the most profound impact of the case came from what happened after the court dismissed all charges. Victoria approached Shai outside the courthouse, expecting him to be angry, vindictive, or at least coldly professional. Instead, he greeted her with the same respectful demeanor he had maintained throughout the entire ordeal. "Sterling, I want you to know that I don't hold any hard feelings about this case," Shai said. "I understand that you were representing your client to the best of your ability based on the information you had." Victoria was stunned by his grace. "Mr. Gilgeous-Alexander, I owe you an enormous apology. I made assumptions about your character without doing proper research, and I allowed my competitive instincts to override my professional judgment." Shai's response would change Victoria's approach to law forever. Ms. "Sterling, we all make mistakes when we're working with incomplete information. The important thing is what we learn from those experiences." But what Shai said next would inspire Victoria to completely restructure her legal practice and personal philosophy. "I've watched some of your other cases, and you're clearly a skilled attorney who cares about justice. Maybe this experience will help you find ways to use those skills for causes that align with your values rather than just your competitive instincts." Victoria realized that Shai was offering her something she had never received from anyone she had defeated in court: respect, understanding, and encouragement to become better. The conversation continued for 20 minutes, during which Shai shared his thoughts about accountability, second chances, and the importance of using success to lift others up rather than tear them down. "The difference between winning and succeeding," Shai explained, "is that winning is about beating other people, but succeeding is about becoming the best version of yourself while helping others do the same." Victoria left that conversation knowing that she needed to make fundamental changes to her legal practice and her approach to conflict resolution. But what happened during the following months would prove that genuine transformation requires more than just good intentions. Victoria began researching legal advocacy organizations that focused on helping people who couldn't afford high-quality legal representation. She discovered that many of the skills she had developed in corporate litigation could be applied to cases involving civil rights, consumer protection, and community justice. Within 6 months, Victoria had restructured her practice to dedicate 60% of her time to pro bono work and community legal advocacy. She specialized in cases involving corporate misconduct, predatory lending, and workplace discrimination. The financial impact was significant. Victoria's income dropped by more than half, but the personal satisfaction was unlike anything she had experienced during her corporate litigation career. But the most meaningful validation of Victoria's transformation came when she received an unexpected phone call 18 months after the dismissed lawsuit. "Sterling, this is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I wanted to congratulate you on the work you've been doing with the Community Legal Justice Center. I've been following your cases, and I'm impressed by your commitment to helping people who really need legal advocacy." Victoria was stunned that Shai had been paying attention to her career changes. "Thank you, Mr. Gilgeous-Alexander. I have to admit that our conversation after the court case was a major factor in my decision to change the focus of my practice." Shai's response revealed the depth of character that Victoria had completely missed during her lawsuit preparation. "Ms. Sterling, I have a proposition for you. I've been looking for ways to expand my community impact, and I think legal advocacy is an area where I could make a real difference. Would you be interested in partnering on some initiatives?" What emerged from that conversation was the Gilgeous-Alexander Legal Justice Fund, a foundation that provided funding for legal representation in cases involving community members who couldn't afford quality attorneys. Victoria served as the fund's legal director, using her litigation skills to handle cases involving housing discrimination, wage theft, and consumer fraud. Shai provided funding and used his platform to raise awareness about legal justice issues. But perhaps the most powerful aspect of their partnership was how it demonstrated the potential for conflict to become collaboration when people are willing to learn from their mistakes. During the fund's first annual report presentation, Victoria reflected on the journey that had brought her from filing a frivolous lawsuit to working alongside the person she had tried to destroy. 18 months ago, I thought I knew everything about justice, winning, and professional success, Victoria told an audience of legal professionals and community leaders. I was completely wrong about all three concepts. Victoria looked at Shai, who was sitting in the front row with the same respectful attention he had shown throughout their partnership. Real justice isn't about defeating opponents, it's about finding truth and creating solutions that help everyone involved become better. Real winning isn't about destroying other people, it's about using your skills to lift up people who need support. And real professional success isn't measured by your win-loss record, it's measured by whether you're using your talents to make the world more fair and compassionate. The presentation concluded with statistics showing that the Gilgeous-Alexander Legal Justice Fund had helped over 200 families avoid foreclosure, recovered more than $3 million in stolen wages, and successfully challenged discriminatory practices by several major corporations. But the impact that meant the most to Victoria was personal. She had learned to use her competitive instincts and legal skills in service of causes that aligned with her deepest values rather than just her professional ambitions. 2 years after the dismissed lawsuit, Victoria received the Oklahoma Bar Association's Pro Bono Service Award for her work with underserved communities. During her acceptance speech, she made sure to acknowledge the person who had inspired her transformation. "This award belongs to everyone who taught me that the best lawyers aren't the ones who never lose cases, they're the ones who use their skills to help people who need justice but can't afford access to it," Victoria said. She looked out at the audience of legal professionals, many of whom remembered her as the aggressive corporate litigator who had filed the embarrassing lawsuit against Shai. "I want to especially thank Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who responded to my professional mistakes with the kind of grace and wisdom that taught me more about justice than law school ever did." Sometimes the most important legal education comes from the people we initially misunderstand. As Victoria held her award, she thought about the frivolous lawsuit that had nearly destroyed her reputation and career, and how that failure had led to the most meaningful work of her professional life. The lawyer who had sued the wrong person learned that being legally right and being actually right are often completely different things, and that the most successful cases are the ones where everyone involved becomes better than they were before. And in Oklahoma City, where a community legal center helped families fight for justice they couldn't afford on their own, they understood that sometimes the best partnerships are formed between people who started out on opposite sides but found common ground in their commitment to using their talents for something larger than themselves. Victoria Sterling had learned that true victory in law, as in life, isn't about defeating opponents, it's about finding ways to ensure that justice serves everyone, especially those who need it most.